2020 just keeps getting better and better. Just a few days after the Ivy League announced that they would not be playing fall football, but rather would move to a spring season, the Big Ten and the ACC both announced that they would not be playing any non-conference football games in 2020. And guys, that's a huge blow to us as college football fans and a huge blow to a lot of these programs within the Big Ten and the ACC. Because some of the most highly anticipated matchups going into this season are no longer going to happen. That includes Ohio State and Oregon in Week 2. We've got Penn State and Virginia Tech, Wisconsin and Notre Dame at Lambeau Field, and even Miami and Michigan State. None of those games will be taking place along with all the other non-conference games within the Big Ten and the ACC. And guys, I have to say this feels very premature. This decision made by both of these conferences feels like it was made way too early and came as a shock to me. I think no one really saw this announcement coming yesterday afternoon. No one saw this happening. We knew college football was still up in the air. We didn't know if we were going to have maybe a spring season, if we were going to delay the season. We always knew that having no non-conference games was a possibility, but really didn't think it was going to happen this early. Because, guys, we are still just about 2 months out from college football. We are still in the early part of July. The season doesn't really start until August 29th. And so I get that we have to get a plan in place. I get that we have to prepare for the upcoming season, and sometimes in that case, it's the earlier the better. But I still think this was a wrong decision, at least at this point in time, from both the Big Ten and the ACC. Now, of course, the rest of the Power 5, the Big 12, the SEC, and the Pac-12 have not made any decisions yet regarding their non-conference games. The Big 12 even came out and said that as of right now, they do not even plan on canceling their non-conference games. But it is more than likely, and it makes sense, that the rest of the Power 5 and really the rest of college football period will follow in the footsteps of the Big Ten and the ACC. More than likely, you will not see any non-conference games, at least within the Power 5 and probably within college football in general. So that's going to result in many of these conferences just playing 8 to 10 conference games, interconference games for the entirety of the season. And that will be our college football season. That will be what we get to watch every Saturday. Which we always say, conference games are, of course, the most important. Those are the ones that determine who goes to conference championships, not the non-conference games. But in some of the weaker conferences, such as the ACC, maybe even the Pac-12, you can't help but wonder if you have some, really good teams in there, some teams that kind of surprise, you can't help but wonder, should you have added maybe 1, 2, or maybe 3 losses to their record had they played their non-conference games? It's something to really keep in mind here. And that's something that I think is really going to drastically shape this college football season. Get rid of non-conference games, but there's going to be a huge asterisk on every record across the country this year, whether you go undefeated or whether you go 0-10, say you play 10 games. Because you don't have your non-conference games. So if you have a guy in the SEC that goes undefeated, wins every single conference game, people out there are going to say, well, you may have lost that non-conference game, so really it's not an undefeated season. You don't really deserve that championship. You don't really deserve this because you didn't play a full 12 games. And that's something that you're going to hear about from fans, bitter fans across the country, and something that could greatly affect, guys, the bowl games, the postseason, and the college football playoff. Will we even have those? Because those big games that we mentioned, Ohio State and Oregon, Penn State, Virginia Tech, Notre Dame, Wisconsin, a lot of those games consist of college football playoff contenders. And those games were opportunities for them to boost their resume, to get signature wins. So that if they only lose one game, but they have that win on their resume, it helps them out a lot. Or maybe they lose 2 games, but one of them is in that elite matchup, and one of them is to an elite opponent within the conference. That's how the non-conference matters. The non-conference matters for games like this. So that's something to keep in mind, guys. We don't know what's going to happen. We do not know what's going to happen, but I certainly do not agree with the decisions made within 2 of the 5 Power 5 conferences just yesterday. Everything right now just kind of remains to be seen. I think we will have a decision made in the next 2 weeks. What it sounds to me like is that we are, in fact, going to have a season. It's just not going to be the way that we wanted it to be. But as I've told many people, I would rather have any football over no football at all. And of course, we always have to keep in mind, while we are avid fans for every single team out there, the safety and the health of our players and our coaches and our students at our respective schools, of course, is the number one priority. And that certainly has to take place. It has to be in the mind of every coach and athletic director and conference commissioner as we kind of go through this very difficult time. So I did get a few questions over the course of the past 24 hours about how that's going to affect us here at the Gridiron Expert. How will these decisions made within the Big Ten and the ACC affect us? Because we are in the middle of prediction season. Luckily for us, we have already completed the Big Ten, and we are wrapping up the ACC. The ACC will conclude on Sunday, guys. We only have a few more teams left to predict within that conference. We've also filmed ahead in a lot of our conferences. We have filmed every single independent team already. So we've already filmed Notre Dame, and that was announced that Notre Dame would be moving over to the ACC. They would play, the majority of their schedule would be against ACC conference opponents. We've already filmed them. We've already filmed the majority of another Power 5 conference. I don't want to say who. We've got to keep you on your toes a little bit. But we're not going to go back and change those. We don't have the time to do that. We've already filmed, like I said, we've already filmed almost 2 entire conferences, and really, plus the independents, plus one more. So 3 Power 5 conferences and the entire independents. We just don't have the time, due to our scheduling, to go back and refilm and reshoot all these videos. We also don't know how the schedules are going to be laid out for all of these teams as well. So certainly something that we have to keep in mind, something that we're going to be looking at as we go forward. But we promised you guys predictions. We promised you guys predictions for every single Power 5 team and Group of 5 recaps, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We are going to pretend like the season is going on as scheduled. So for the SEC, the Big 12, the Pac-12, we're going to address every single game like there's nothing going on, because that's what we did for the Big Ten, the ACC, and we owe it to you guys to do that for every other conference and every other team as well. So predictions will go on as normal. We are aware of what's happened within the Big Ten and the ACC. We're aware that that's already happened. We didn't know that when we filmed those weeks and weeks and weeks ago, all right? So we're going to make sure to cover every single team like we said, and by the end of prediction season in mid-August, depending on the decisions made within the other conferences, we might come back and give you our updated conference recaps, updated conference standings, and new records for each Power 5 team as well, assuming that the SEC, Big 12, and Pac-12 follow suit from the Big Ten and the ACC. So we will come back with updated conference recaps as things continue to decline. But for right now, we're going to go on as business as usual right here at the Gridiron Expert. We're a man and a company of our word, and we'll make sure to give you guys that high-quality content and analysis that you guys certainly deserve. So guys, COVID continuing to run rampant through the United States, continuing to affect sports, and most importantly, affect college football greater than we ever thought possible. But we are continuing to power through, and it does sound like we are going to have sports one way or another come September, come this fall. And that's really all we could ever hope for during these unprecedented times. So guys, I want to thank you all so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert. As always, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe. We want to hear from you. Give us your thoughts on the decisions made within the Big Ten and the ACC. Share with us what you think and what you think needs to be done as we go through the rest of this season. We always are open to discussion with you guys. And once again, guys, thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned. We've got more prediction videos coming your way, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.